Last time, we played a game with just enough gameplay and a great story with excellent presentation. This time, it's going to be different. This is a game I had growing up, a spin off game based on the anime of the same name, Ghost in the Shell. I first saw the movie when I was 8, and that enabled me to convince my mother to buy it for me at the store, so a lot of themes went over my head at the time. Aesthetically, the game does a good job of adapting the characters and world to 3D while avoiding the pitfalls of modern anime styles. So many of the levels feel like they had access to animation cells directly. The game features a lot of verticality too, which seems cool, but I'll explain later. The game also holds up reasonably well for a PlayStation 2 game, due to it not targeting realism for its graphics, but it has aged noticeably. There's obvious pop-in on some enemies, and I have a texture alignment bug on some of the screen effects. A lot of this I think can be safely attributed to me emulating it in a non-native resolution. Sound-wise, the game is a treat. Almost the entire cast from the
Weapons
anime
still taking
itself
place at
reprises their
Mihai,
roles in the
Unclear
game.
N3. Apparently, the weapons were scheduled to be scrapped by the military but were misappropriated.
Shouldn't we put a leash on him and see where he
This is
roams?
when they're at their peak as well, seeing as the show was still actively running while the game was being made. The sounds of the guns and environment are fantastic as well, being provided directly by the studio from the anime itself. The composer from Tekken is present, delivering a top-tier soundtrack that feels like they ripped it right out of the show. I'm going to be using the soundtrack for the rest of the video until the credits. The plot was also worked on by the original author of the manga in the concept phase. The design team stated they wanted to be faithful to the show, and it really shows too, as the game progresses like an extended episode of the anime. In some instances, the characters may act more like their manga counterparts, being a little bit more exaggerated, but overall, this is going with the form of the characters established in the anime. The gameplay is that of a third-person shooter, however, it's from 2004, so it could be a bit rough around the edges. This means it can feel imprecise while shooting, so you'll see me in gameplay doing little circles to up my hit count. The sniper rifle is super cool though. The game has a surprisingly robust melee system. Using your directional input and the one melee button, you can perform a few basic combos. This is very welcome, especially after the tutorial made it seem like a simple punch button. Every combo has a finisher, like a dropkick that gives you a small burst of slow motion. You can still be shot during this though, so it can be a problem locking you into an animation. On top of standard third-person shooting, the game will expect at least some platforming out of you. You have some advanced movement features that lets you ledge grab at will on almost any protrusion in the environment, and Assassin's Creed wouldn't be out for another few years. However, due to the camera angles of the game, the 3D platforming can be frustrating. You could see me taking a breath after struggling here. Despite some frustrations, I think the platforming and verticality is a welcome addition to make the game feel more like its source material. The game also doesn't forget that Bato and the Major are top-notch hackers, and has a bit of gameplay to reflect that. On occasion, when you kill an enemy commander, they drop a unit ID code. This reveals the rest of the enemies on the map, but on other occasions, they drop a hacking ID code. When you look at an enemy with a blue arrow over his head, you get a prompt for a minigame. After beating this minigame, you get to take over the enemy unit and get to score some free kills. There's no consequence for failing the minigame either. If all that wasn't good enough for you, the game also has many power-ups, the most common being restoration kits that heal you, to active camo that's just free kills. Another rare power-up you get is a bullet time effect. This only shows up when you're low HP and is very powerful. You only get it for a limited time, and it disappears when you restore enough HP. The game also supported up to 4-player split screen in 2 modes, Battle Royale, which is just free for all, and Classic Team Deathmatch. The only thing special about this mode is you can unlock a few characters and outfits after you beat the story. I'm going to talk about the plot in detail now, so if you want my final thoughts, skip to here.
I know they're carrying out New World Order. I know they staged those terror attacks. You know what it's like to gut up to this and go out every day and go past the peer pressure and come out day one and say 9/11 was an inside job and lose most of the radio stations I was on? You know what it's like to go to sleep every night knowing you work for a bunch of psychotic killers and you bastards are probably going to end up killing me one day? You know what it's like knowing you've ruined my life? You know what it's like, you sons of bitches? I'm tired of your crap! You commit evil, you're part of an evil system, and we're standing up against you!
Now that they're gone, we can get going on spoilers. If any of this becomes hard to follow, the game has a helpful word list page that will give you definitions and descriptions. This was very helpful in making this plot summary. To give a better explanation, I need to briefly go into how the anime structures its plot. The show has something called a complex episode, which is one piece of a larger narrative, so a lot of threads are dangled out there with seemingly no connection that are all tied together by the end. The game attempts to do the same with mixed results, as it does require you to read that word list, otherwise you will miss critical information. Going back to the game now, our plot starts with an investigation into an arms smuggling group at Nihama Pier. After fighting through or avoiding all armed resistance, the Major attempts to apprehend the leader, who is killed remotely. Our first threat, a man who has been dead for 5 years, Takeru Fuwa. He was a promising researcher who had been called to the Tohoku Autonomous Region during wartime. Here he met Kei Yasawa, an idealist seeking an end to world hunger.
They're keeping scientists?
Yazawa is one of the scientists who fled to the region in response to a summons issued by the military. He's still there despite the dismantling of the installation.
In conjunction with another researcher, Aichi Goto, who specialized in micro-machines, they created a super rice which could grow in almost all conditions, called Riku 132.
say that rice was developed 4 years back by the Agriculture Ministry's research agency.
Ishikawa, check along those lines too.
Roger.
It would be a version of this rice that Fuwa was transporting, except it contains a virus that, when triggered, will cause the tainted rice to cause cellular death in all the host cells at once. This was then distributed at a high-profile luxury restaurant opening, the attendees of which are now being ransomed. The demands being independence for the autonomous region and recognition for their creation of Riku 132. At first it seems like the entire autonomous region is unified in this plan. However, Goto reaches out to Section 9 for help, stating there's a traitor within the autonomous region. Bato is sent to retrieve Goto, as he will be an important witness.
It was for that reason that Fuwa went to Nihama by himself. If we don't hand over that rice, terrible things will happen.
When Bato arrives, though, he discovers Goto was killed by someone who looked like the Major.
Goto? A high-velocity armor-piercing round from behind. He wasn't shot very long ago. This is it. Who the hell is that?
The game attempts to pull this while forgetting you're playing the Major too. This just shows even more that it was written like the anime. After fighting deeper into the autonomous region, it's uncovered that Toshimi Tagami, Kay's sister is an infamous hacker called the Choreographer.
But I think they called him the choreographer or something of the sort.
She has been masterminding the whole operation in memory of Kay. Bato finds Kay's body, confirming it had been Toshimi the entire time.
This area looks like their dressing room. That must be the prosthetic body we saw on the monorail. And this one is the regional director's original prosthetic body. Which means that must be her secret treasure chest. Hey, it's...
Ironically, it was Kay himself who allowed the Japanese Agriculture Department to steal his patent. He had a disease that was killing him, but he could have got a cyber body and prevented his death. However, his final words to his sister were, "People should live in harmony with the Earth, and return to the Earth when it's time." Had he filed the patent himself, he could have dictated terms for it. Continuing on, Toshimi, having been found out, not wanting to be forgotten, tells the Major about Kay's ideals while inside a tank.
Once again, so that people may experience the simple and pure joy of true happiness, in order for all poverty and suffering to be forever eradicated from the face of the earth, I intend to boldly set out on a road that leads to nowhere. But even if this road should end in nothing, I am certain that those who live lives of righteousness and strength will see before them the path they must take. By lives of righteousness and strength, I mean being aware of clear intent and grand passions within you, and living your lives accordingly. Have I reached my destination?
After a fight with some cool visuals, we get a cutscene where Toshimi leaps out of the tank wearing a cyber body exactly like that of the Major. The rice was all just a ploy for her to infiltrate the government. This is stopped by Bato, who deduces which one is the fake. It's assumed that if Toshimi were successful, she would have gone on to kill who she blamed for her brother's death.
So you're the fake!
After extracting from the autonomous region, the Major remarks about the Riku 132 source code being leaked. So in the end, the world is one step closer to the ideals that Kay espoused for the better.
Looks that way.
Simultaneous multiple leaks of the Riku micro machine configuration have been confirmed. Thanks to that, the rights to the rice that the Japanese government had a monopoly on are now effectively license-free.
When I started making this video, I just remembered a cool action game. What I did not remember was GMOs and intellectual property law being a central plot point. It felt like I was doing genuine detective work, complete with long hours and taking notes by hand. Despite some roughness due to its age, I think this game makes a worthy addition to the series. The gameplay is enjoyable, and the story feels right at home amongst the other plots on offer by the anime. I can see now why I saw some people say they include it in their watch lists when they rewatch the show. Think of it like Season 1.5. Thanks for watching. Please leave comments, questions, and recommendations down below or by email. I'll eventually start answering questions at the end of videos when I collect enough.